and welcome to Man Enough. I'm Justin Baldoni.
I'm Liz Plank.
And I'm Jamie Heath.
And this is a special episode.
It is.
Because...
Number one, we're wearing the same clothes as our finale. Why?
Because we are currently shooting our finale, and we had an amazing guest come in. And the conversation was so important and too good. So we've created an extra episode.
Whole episode.
Yeah.
Whole episode.
We could not edit a single word out of that conversation.
And
every single word was crucial.
Yeah.
Who is on with us today, Liz?
So Giacomo Gianniotti, who is, I don't know, at this point, one of my favorite humans alive. And
right.
I thought I was a big fan.
You loved him before.
I loved him before. And now I need a new word because he just showed up to this table and did something that so few men have done in my life, or so few men have done, I think, publicly, especially in this moment where there's a lot that's at stake for women's rights. And he just walked in and blew me away and brought me to tears. So I'm not going to tell you what he did, because you're going to have to listen. But it was worth just making its own episode for it.
So with that, let's just go right to it. This is Man Enough. And now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Life in 2022 can be overwhelming, and so many people are burned out and they don't even know it. Those symptoms of burnout can look like lack of motivation, feeling helpless or trapped, feelings of despair or depression, fatigue, detachment, and so much more. I know personally, I have burned out multiple times. It's easy. We just work. And because so much of our worth is tied to our productivity, we never take the time to pause, which is why I'm such a huge fan of therapy. I'm a huge fan of online therapy. And I can tell you firsthand that for me, and I am someone who is privileged to be able to afford therapy, it has made such a huge difference in my life, in my marriage, in my relationships, in my work. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. And our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/manenough. That's betterhelp.com/manenough. Okay, welcome back to Man Enough.
Oh, Giacomo, hi.
Hi.
We're so excited that you're here.
Thank you. Me too.
All right. Tell us what you've been doing. Tell us since you last were on our podcast, and we had some amazing conversations, and you shared some really...
I loved that episode.
It was so good.
Sweet.
You were, and people loved that episode. I think it was so useful for not just men, but men particularly who are in relationships and are going through issues in their relationship that's reflecting their journey around masculinity. And even sometimes when I feel hopeless about the future, like I feel hetero-pessimistic.
Oh my God.
I'll go and look, like some of the things that you said on that episode really give me hope about all of us as a, coming together, men and women making it work. So yeah, really insightful things.
And, like I said on that time, just because I was, competent enough to speak about these things and articulate them did not mean that I was a master of these
Right.
things, right? But I think that's the first step, like I said, is just if you can acknowledge these things and say, oh, I do have these issues, then I can work on them. And I'm still, working on, haven't made leaps and bounds since we last talked, guys.
Did your wife listen to the
Yeah,
episode?
well, we heard that.
She did. She loved it. And she's like, great, now I have this piece of video I can just hold you to task. I can just point to it when we're having trouble and say, hey, remember what you said here when Liz asked you that question?
I love her.
So what are some of the things that maybe some steps that you have taken since then?
Yeah.
Not that we were like the impetus for every change in your
Well,
life, but what are some things?
Yeah, the last time I was here, I don't think I was in a headspace, to share something with you guys. But since it went so well and you guys provided such an amazing, safe, gracious space to share, I felt like I wanted to share it today. And I feel like with everything going on in the media today, I felt more so of a responsibility as a man to share it. And during the pandemic, my wife and I suffered 2 back-to-back miscarriages.
Oh.
We lost 2 children. And for those of you who don't know what a miscarriage is, when a woman miscarries, there is a sort of automatic bodily function that occurs that allows that woman to pass that child. And so what a miscarriage is the body does not recognize that has happened, and therefore does not kick in that response to pass that child, which means at that point what is needed is medical intervention and a medical abortion. And so my wife and I did that 2 times in a row, back to back. We lost 2 children, and my wife needed this health care, this basic human right of health care to save her life, because her body was not doing what it was supposed to do. And it was incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging, but because of my wife and I's socioeconomic privilege that we have, we went to a top care healthcare facility, had no problems, and got through it as best as we could, and were able to move on and heal because of that right that was given to us. If we did not have that privilege, I really don't know what we would have done. And it's the problem that's facing so many people across the country right now. And nobody in that who's put in that position wants to be there. This is a horrible place to be, to have to make that decision for whatever reason. And the fact that women have to not only have obstacles in the way of having to make that decision, but that they also have to have shame thrown at them around it is just despicable and even more traumatizing, And I think for us, like my wife and I, the trauma was threefold, because the first trauma is just finding out that you've lost your child, which is hugely traumatic. The second trauma is having to go to a medical facility where that child is having to be removed, from her body, and the finality of that is incredibly traumatizing. And then the third trauma is having to share this news with your community, with your loved ones, with your safe family and friends, and having to relive that trauma through the sharing of it. And speaking of sharing, I'm sharing this with you all with my wife's consent. We've talked about this, of course. And she said to me, Giacomo, I'm really glad and proud that you're actually going to be able to share this, because I feel like so oftentimes in society, the women are burdened with having to share this news, and which further emphasizes how society thinks it's a woman's problem and a woman's issue. So with that being said, men need to speak up, and I'm trying to do my best of walking the walk. I talk it all the time, and this is me just trying to walk it as well. And men need to speak up and share their stories more than ever, not just how men have benefited from having access to abortions, but also stories like mine where, to no fault of their own, we've had to have access to medical abortions because we've had miscarriages. And even though my suffering can't even be compared to my wife's suffering, I still suffered. Yeah. I still lost, 2 children. Never going to get to meet them. Never going to get to know their names. Never going to get to push them on a swing. I lost that. And that's heavy. And I know that I'm not alone, because I've spoken to other men in my community about their stories. And, I'm a big history buff, and I've studied a lot of, war and battles and throughout history. And they were always won, even if they were outnumbered, because they had the strength of their entire army fighting behind them. And I think in this issue, women have been fighting this alone for too long. And I think that's why they're always losing, and why we find ourselves in a position where not only progress is slowed, but we're reversing. We're going backwards. And until men realize that this is our issue too, and we need to fight not only just as hard, but harder, because we have making up to do, we'll never succeed, and we'll never have freedom from this. The fact that, I remember being a kid and hearing about feminism and thinking, it's like, feminism is just anti-man, it's pro-woman and anti-man. And no, if you look up the definition, it's literally just equality, just equal rights. That's it. It's not bashing men. It's not anti-man. It's just equality. So if there's no laws that are regulating my bodily autonomy or any of the decisions that I need to make, whether I want to have a vasectomy, reverse my vasectomy, or do any of these things, and there is laws and regulations around a woman's autonomy, that means we are not equal. And until that wrong is right, we will never be equal. And so I just hope that other men can feel safe to share their stories of this, so that we really rally behind women and let them know that they don't have to fight this battle on their own. And I hope through that we will finally have success and we don't have to talk about this stuff anymore. And I just thank all of you guys for listening and holding space for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Wow.
This is one of the most significant moments in my life. What you have just done is something that feels healing to me from so many years of wanting to hear that from a man. And I can't tell you what it means for me, for you to bring this up without me having to bring it up, because this has been on my mind every day. And I feel like annoying, and I feel like I'm imposing this conversation onto men. And for you to come in here and decide to do it and to share this story with us and our audience is so meaningful. It's so meaningful. And it's also reflective of so many other men and so many other couples who have gone through this. Most of the abortions that we're talking about, half of them happen with abortion pills because they happen so early in the pregnancy. And then those that don't, very much often they happen to couples who do not want that to be the outcome. And terminating a pregnancy is an abortion. And so every time we let people disparage this conversation and yell at people, harass people, kill people who provide or who are fighting for the right to abortion, we're giving into a lie, and we're hurting people like you and your wife. We're hurting people who are just doing their best. So I actually don't have the most eloquent thing to say right now, because I am just so grateful, and I'm kind of overwhelmed and speechless. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. I
know I just dropped a lot on you guys. So
no, you dropped exactly what you needed to and what we needed.
But thank you for letting me get through it, and appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing that. And also, Liz, thank you for sharing that. I haven't seen you moved as much. It's rare that you show that side. And you had said some things like you have been waiting to hear that from a man. And so I appreciate you sharing your own personal story and the trauma of that, being vulnerable. But also, you didn't just leave it there. You then led that to the equality of women. It didn't just stay with your own personal life.
Of course. That
you then led it to that. And that's ultimately what you're leaving it with, which is what I know also moved you so much, that it wasn't only about your personal loss, but the loss of what women experience all the time and how they go through this alone. So thank you for doing that.
Well, I think, I can't tell you how much, therapy my wife and I've had to do to overcome these devastating, bring you to your knees losses. But through that, as you very aptly put, once you get beyond the you of like what this has done to me, and that's sort of squared away and understood and processed, then you do sort of look up from yourself and realize that this isn't just happening to me. This is happening to so many people. And like once we started sharing it with our community, and I started talking to different, men in my group about it, and my wife started sharing it with different women and men in her group about it, we just realized how common this is, scarily, shockingly common. And, the stigmas around this stuff and why, women harbor so much shame is because it's not talked about enough. So women feel extremely isolated in this event and isolated in this experience because it doesn't seem like it's happening to everybody else because it's not being spoken about enough. But
and men are sure not speaking about it.
And men are sure not speaking about it. Yeah.
And what it makes me think is that I remember some years ago, I looked at, I was interested in people who lost children through kidnapping. And I started noticing that there are some that recover and some that don't.
Yeah.
And always the ones that recover are the ones that have their pain and then look outward and how this has affected the rest of the world and how they could be an advocate for it so that their loss isn't in vain.
Right. It means something.
It means something.
Definitely.
So I know that your family has experienced so much I can't even imagine really, and not just once, but twice. And yet also to know that it won't be in vain because you are thinking about how you use that to then better humanity and to advance us. And I believe that when you get to the next world, whatever you may believe that is, for me it is in fact heaven or whatever people call it, that you'll look back and you will know that it was not in vain, that humanity advanced. Women actually were elevated and men stood up more because of you and your experience and you speaking about
If
it.
I have a small role to play in that, then I'm very happy to, because it's just, like you said, like once you get out of the whole, your own and how it affects you, you really realize the bigger picture. And the bigger picture, is a call to action. We have to. We have to do better. And I sound like you were saying, like I feel like I'm annoying. I feel like I'm like always bringing it up and stuff. But it's really on men right now to share their experiences. I just, at the very least, I just want women and families to not feel like they're alone in this. And like having it happen during a pandemic where we're already like incredibly isolated. We're not seeing anyone. We're not talking to many people and being as social as we normally would. It was incredibly isolating. If we felt incredibly alone in this experience, and like you said, a lot of experiences like this can either make or break a relationship, and I'm very lucky to say that we got kind of closer over it. It was kind of like, well, if we can get through this, then what can we get through? You know what I mean? So. Yeah, but it's challenging and it affects so many more people. And I think, I didn't know so much about, this stuff and this fertility, and women suffer so much in fertility. It can be an incredibly beautiful process. That's incredibly rewarding, but it can also be a very long and arduous
and dangerous.
Journey,
childbirth is dangerous,
yes.
right? Like
it's a major medical event.
Exactly. For a lot of women, it's a threat to their lives. And so when we're thinking about Black mortality, when we're thinking about when we think about maternal mortality, but also Black female mortality, which is even higher, and in a lot of these states, it's poor women, it's women of color that they're not going to have access to abortion. This is so much of a bigger issue, and I love that you used the word abortion, and you didn't say what sort of these platitudes of a woman's right to choose, or again, it's reproductive rights. It's not but I think it's important that we say that and we use that term because. People who are rabidly anti-choice will use the word abortion and we don't use it. And so that means that we kind of, again, ascribe this fear to it or we kind of give into that framing that there's something wrong or that there's something horrible about it.
Because of ignorance and a lack of education and for nothing else.
Yeah.
Because, and like even me, like when I was growing up or as a teenager and someone brought up the word abortion, I didn't know the expanse of that word.
Course.
I didn't know the massiveness of what that word carried. And it's carrying a lot. And because of lack of education in a lot of these places, people are voting against things that if you would just say, if your daughter had this happen to her, do you know that she would not have and they'd be like,
Absolutely
I didn't know in that case.
Yeah.
Well, but she didn't. She didn't choose.
That would never happen to That would never happen to my
that's
daughter.
literally what it is. Because
exactly.
down the line, no matter what the scenario, the procedure is the same.
Yeah. No,
and therefore, it's always called an abortion. And so if you outlaw that, you outlaw any scenario where that is needed.
Yeah.
Where it could be life-threatening, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's about like education and getting people to know in those other states where there's lack of education, lack of maybe more progressive media, to really redefine all the things that word covers and the umbrella that it holds, you know? Because I think if people really knew how many things that word covers, I think they would rethink their political position on it, you know?
There's a medical decision,
Yeah,
you know, at the end of the day. And doctors, there's, no medical establishment that supports this.
I appreciate you sharing all that, both of you. I'm one that struggles using the word abortion. That's not true. I can use the word abortion. I struggle with using it in the context of speaking about this. I know that it can be triggering,
Definitely.
or it's a hot topic word that can then sometimes make it go somewhere that I'm not hoping it goes, because rather I want to talk about the issue and not get people on defensive and all of that. And I can't say that I'm fully, even after hearing this, comfortable just using it in this context.
Why?
What do you mean?
I don't disagree with anything that both of you said. My feeling has always been aborting a child for the sake of birth control, using it in that fashion, has been something that I have had to reconcile of how that works in the world. So because of that, I'm careful when I use the word. However, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong with that, or I'm not saying I'm right. Let me just say there. I'm saying that what I appreciate by what you both said is the gravity of the word and how much it entails in education is important, because it doesn't necessarily mean just what I have decided it meant growing up or another. And if we do that, then it doesn't allow us to see the big picture. And we can just be then stuck on what I think it means, and therefore denying a whole thing that needs to be not denied. So that's pretty much what I want to say, is that I appreciate that. I think there's a lot to learn from what you shared.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I've felt this ambivalence, I guess, from you, or that, that we don't necessarily land on the same page. And I do feel like you're, and I used to be like this too. I used to not say abortion because I was like, oh, then it'll be easier to talk to people. But where I'm realizing, again, it's becoming an issue, because then we let other people define abortion for us in a way that even what you described is not how most people use abortion, right? Most people don't want to get an abortion, right?
Sure,
and it's expensive, and it's, especially now, I mean, there are most counties don't have an abortion clinic. So it's like very taxing to do that. And but I also understand, because I remember again, sort of being at a certain age and being like, oh, should abortion, you kind of have this idea of who gets an abortion, right? Or there's this story out there. And that didn't come from you. That didn't come from, you're not a person who judges other people. You're not someone who judges women and their decisions. But there are narratives in our society that drive policy, that drive our cultural feelings about things. And that is one of them that, it's just not most women, and it's not most couples.
No, I agree.
And I think it's important for us to dispel that myth, because unfortunately it's led us here. Right? Where we're worried about bringing up an issue about, like, I'm sorry to bring up, like, sorry to be dramatic, but like, should women have bodily autonomy? Like, it's just like, the world is watching us, descend into a really dangerous place.
And I appreciate so much what you said, Liz, about that we should be comfortable with using the word abortion. As a Black man, I know there are some people that are not comfortable doing a Black Lives Matter march. They're not comfortable with putting things on their social media. They're comfortable in the way that they know how to do it. Mm-hmm. And for me to say, well, you have to go to a march in order to make a stance is might be unfair to their journey and to how they were raised. So long as they are doing the work is more what I care about versus the terminology they use. I don't want to say that therefore those people are not, in fact, on board and care about the work.
Yes, but doing the work, as you're saying, like, to echo some of the conversations we were having the last time I was here, is that, you can't get away with, I'm not racist, I have a Black friend. It's not enough to be not racist is about being anti-racist. What is the work that you're talking about that you're
But
doing?
you can be
to-
you can be pro-choice very much. Speak about it, such and such, and not use two terminologies.
Yeah.
That's not saying.
No, but I
have a
think
black friend.
we also had a conversation the last time I was here about, getting people on board and how you have to be delicate and careful with that because you can lose them very quickly if you trigger or if you're too forceful or if you got to be gentle around the thing and understand and hold space for where they're at in their journey, in their education, in their faith, whatever they're kind of going through that is seeming like a barrier to being more open to this. I think what I've landed on and some of the conversations that I've had with my family or with my wife's family is that if you do not want to have an abortion because you think that is wrong, that is great.
Don't have one.
And
That's what pro-choice means.
yeah.
have one.
Don't have
Yeah,
one.
of course.
All we're asking is that in our life, if we're in a situation for whatever reason where we need to have one, then don't shame us, don't go against us, and don't block access to it.
100%.
Because we are not forcing you to do something, and we just also don't want to be forced. So it's just, if we're not going to be judging you, then we don't want you judging us or blocking us or creating legislation that allows, this stuff to happen. So,
Which ironically
Agreed.
is in many ways the golden rule found in all of the religious textbooks ever. When that's the irony of the situation. Baha'u'llah says, breathe not the sins of others so long as thou art thyself a sinner. When you think about wanting to change somebody else, you look in the mirror and think about all the things that are wrong with you.
absolutely.
But that's not where we are.
No. But I feel like so much of the conversation is like, what do you mean you don't believe? How could you possibly, be that stance? How could you? And instead, we need to change it to, okay, I understand that. I respect that. And you have this connection to this faith or to whatever it is that makes you believe that. And that's beautiful. And I don't want to get in the way of it. I just want to have the opportunity to do that if I need to do that.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's such an important conversation, and yet the larger conversation is that we are organizing ourselves by what we are against instead of what we're for.
It's true.
And I believe that we are living in a time when people are so sad and so lonely, and no one is feeling enough, and we are acting out like little children, and aligning ourselves with parties and politics that we don't probably personally believe in,
Correct.
but think that it gives us an identity if we join.
Yeah.
I read I don't know what it was. I read it somewhere, but someone had this joke. It was like a bumper sticker or something. It was if men could have abortions, there'd be one at every gas station.
It'd be an ATM. Yeah. You'd be able to get right.
And I just really appreciate, first of all, the way in which you talked about it. But I think that men need to hear more men sharing that they were a part of one for whatever reason. Because as much shame as there, as much shame,
Because for every woman that's had one, there is. And that was
well, here's the thing,
involved.
right? So you see all these women holding signs, and again, every time we ask a woman to hold a sign that they did that, it's traumatizing.
Yeah.
It's not, I've never met a person, I've never met a woman who was like, wore it on a t-shirt and was just like, hey,
no big deal.
It's like, I've never, I'm not saying they don't exist, but I've never met a person who, that was an enjoyable thing and they're bragging about it.
Well, there's this sort of famous photograph of this older white woman that I've seen online many times, and she's holding, it's a black and white photo, and she's holding a sign that says, I can't believe I'm still protesting this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where we are with so many things.
He's a woman who her entire life at various moments was having to let me get the sign out of the shed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same
Here we
sign
go
from
again.
50, 60 years
Yeah.
ago.
We're back for our rights.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And at the protest, I mean, it was,
It's exhausting.
it is. I mean, to see women who are so young, I mean, I saw like teenage years, right? 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and then women in their 90s. And it that brought me to tears too, because I was just like, how is this possible? Because this is not radical. Right? Saying we should preserve Roe is not radical. It just, we don't want more rights. We just want the ones that were gained 50 years ago when women couldn't own a credit card and could be raped by their husbands. Like, that's what we're asking for. So there is nothing radical about this, but we're meant to feel that it's radical. And, again, coming back to your point, because I get it, Jamie, like as a white person, I am primed to look at news footage, right, and see Black people fighting for the basic human rights of not being killed by the police and like other basic things that everyone should deserve and have a right to. As a white person who is told time and time again, because of the news that I consume and the stories that are told in the Hollywood movies that I've watched, that Black people are more dangerous and that they're being violent and that what they're asking for, they should be more peaceful. That's how it's being framed for Black Lives Matter. And that's why so many people said, I'm not racist, but I don't want to say Black Lives Matter. It's the same thing. It's like, you're pro-choice. You don't think women should be thrown in jail for needing an abortion. Say abortion. Like, say it. Because when you give in to the stereotype or the narrative that is focused on a minority of women, what you're doing is actually providing more space for resistance to our basic human rights. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
I will reflect on that, because I think you make a very strong point.
People do that with racism. We do that with queer kids. We focus on a very small example where something's being done that's so outlandish, but it's brainwashing us to stay in our box and to think and to what you're doing is also, as I'm listening to you talking, all of you, this limits you. Like, it limits you so much for the government to do this and for the Supreme Court to do this, because it opens the door to so many other infringements on your privacy. I mean, there are laws in Texas where literally you could be thrown in jail because you're driving your girlfriend to get, because Giacomo's going with his wife to get this abortion because she needs it.
You're an accomplice.
He could be, like, there could be bounty hunters.
That being said, Jamie has gone on the record saying he's pro-choice.
Oh, no. 100%.
I know.
I will stand behind that.
And I appreciate,
this is not about that.
I really appreciate us being able to talk about this. And I think this will help so many people because this thing that doesn't get talked about, that's what needs to be, unpacked.
Let me say this. I think that there are a lot of people, good people, who actually are more pro-choice than they think.
Exactly.
And then they hear a word like abortion because of maybe their religious upbringing, because of them reconciling certain feelings that and then they hear it, and it doesn't allow them to see the full picture.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if they did, they would absolutely 100% say, I'm pro-choice. 100% women should control this, all that.
A large population, I believe, would really flip
Yeah.
if the proper education was given.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of saying yes to that, and yet also recognizing in the meantime, there are people that care about it, and you use certain terms that throw them their minds, and then now they are not standing by it. So if we allow them to possibly, don't force them to say, you have to use the word in order to be pro-choice. You can say, you are pro-choice.
Yes.
And while you're working through some of this terminology and unlearning something, you can still be pro-choice and stand by it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why this conversation is important is there's a divide, and you're both pro-choice.
Yeah.
And this is the issue.
Yeah.
Where, yes, language matters, but this is why we have to be so delicate and careful with each other. This is why we have to go back to what Alok said and have compassion over comprehension.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have to understand that, like, oh, wait a second. You actually are on my team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We might be approaching it differently. And that's not happening in so many places, especially in left-leaning circles.
I agree.
There's a strange amount of unity I've noticed on the conservative side of things.
They fall in line.
But there is a massive amount of divisiveness that I've experienced and seen.
Yes.
And I appreciate you both having that conversation. This is where we're coming from. We're programmed to, as Jamie said, view the word abortion, and our bodies, for a lot of people, if they were raised in religious households, have a reaction.
Of course.
And they don't actually know because they haven't had a chance to hear stories from men like this man with this heart, where they see, like, oh, wait a second. But I would never want you to not be able to have that, which is why the power of vulnerability, the power of storytelling, the power of showing up, taking off your armor, and sharing your trauma and your pain and your grief is so massively important, which is what you did today.
So.
It creates conversations. And also, if men don't see it, we cannot be it. We can't.
And that's a big reason for me doing that, because I was just taking a hard look at myself and my life, and a lot of the people that inspire me, right? I watch things that they do, and that inspires me. So if I'm being inspired by this person doing this thing, then I too should be doing something about that, because then I'll be inspiring someone else. You know what I mean? I can't be the only person having this reaction to watching this video or this TED Talk or whatever it is.
But it can feel like
And that's why I care so much about you and about you and about you and this conversation and you. That's why I'm hard on you, and I'm harder on you than like some guy who is on a drink. I'm like,
you just look at me.
What?
I'm harder on you than some.
No, because I feel I do feel like I'm not.
There's no favorites here. Okay?
I singled out Jamie in this conversation. That's what I mean. And that's why I'm harder on you, because I know that so many people look up to you and so many people are inspired by you. And if you say something, they will say something too.
It's huge. Sure.
And so that's exactly right. And I think for men especially, this is what we've been thinking internally too, is like, how do we get men? And this is why it made me so emotional, because like, how do we get men to do what you did without me even having to ask you? Because we're aware that men, listen to other men. Women listen to women, right? Like we look up to women. Obviously, we look up to men too, but it's different. Yeah. And so we have so many examples of women doing it. We need examples of men doing it too.
If every man who's ever been in a relationship that who had a partner that had an abortion came forward and said this happened to them, America would have a different view on what's happening right now.
It's kind of like the Me Too movement, right?
Yeah.
What that started, and the sort of like snowball effect of, it's no secret that women have been sexually assaulted, but when every day you were getting inundated with all these other people that you knew and that you loved and that you watched on TV or day-to-day people, civilians, suddenly you were just present of the magnitude of it, and how present it is in everywhere in society, in every state, in every place in the world.
And how many men were hiding and being like, oh, I hope I'm not next.
Yeah.
Why even have those feelings, right? Unless we've all been a part of it.
We should start a men too, hashtag men too. And then this should be men too. This is its own episode. I'm deciding. We're putting this out.
What I love that you have done, thank you for doing this. You have come back, you were on our podcast before, and you came back to be a part of our finale. And rather than talk about some of the accolades and some of the wonderful things that you've been doing, you have decided to use this time to talk about this very sensitive subject that has been around for a long time, but also right now we're dealing with it in a way that we haven't in such a long time. And you started with your own personal experience. I appreciate you allowing that space to be about that and allowing us to have a conversation that wasn't really about you coming on.
And I want to say one more thing. I don't believe, and I know that I'm careful how I say this. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that we take care of men who've had to go through what you just went through. I don't think that there's a place for us to go, because the grief generally is only allowed for the woman.
Correct.
And I'm not comparing the two experiences, but
they can't be.
Because she's carrying the baby and has to terminate the pregnancy, and it's a physiological difference, right? However, the grief is the same, and the emotional impact is the same, and the mourning of a future you're not going to ever get is the same. And I want you to know I'm so sorry, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, man. I love you.
I love you. And if you're a man listening to this, and I see this over and over, you are allowed to grieve. You're allowed to have sorrow and sadness. Of course, be there for your partner if you've experienced a miscarriage. But take care of your damn selves too, because this has happened to you. Yeah. Whether it was a daughter or a son, you had a name or a vision for the future. You were creating a life. And unfortunately, we have failed you and all the men in society, because there's no place for us to go. There's no place for us to grieve. And this is not a comparison of grief. But reach out to another man.
Yeah.
And cry if you need to. because you're hurting too. And if you don't cry those tears, they will stick in your body, they will stay in your body, and they will turn into anger and stress
And they'll hurt
sickness,
other people.
and you'll hurt somebody else because of it. So thank you for being brave enough to come here and share that, man. I'm so sorry you had to experience that.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
We'll be right back. This is Man Enough. Wow. I think it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we could add to that conversation that hasn't already been said.
Mm-hmm.
Other than I am really moved how much you were moved. And also saddened by how much you were moved. Because you had said, as I think I had said earlier, that you've been waiting to hear a man say that. And while I'm thrilled that he was able to do that, it also makes me a little, why weren't you the first to do that, Jamie?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you give that to her? I don't want to not be that to my mother and to my sister, and to my friends. I don't want to be someone to say that someone else always did it before me. So I'm glad he did. And I'm glad you echoed his thoughts, and I learned and I heard you.
Thank you.
And I'm just glad that you were both able to communicate,
Yes.
share opinions, and still love, respect, and care about each other. Because too often that conversation, even though you're on the same team, turns into a fight where you're no longer on the same team. And we need much more unity. Baha'u'llah says that so powerful is the light of unity that it can illumine the whole earth. And we need some light right now. And you are both light givers. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for our season finale. And I'm Justin Baldoni.
I'm Liz Plank.
I'm Jamie Heath.
And this is Man Enough.